Look at that view. Beautiful, isn't it? The Vale of Evesham. A great place to grow up, as I did, and a great place to live. For now, at least. Because we are living in a fast-changing world, and in future, life could become much less comfortable. Why? Well, too many of the things that we do at the moment are simply unsustainable. From energy to food and water, we use too much and waste even more. You might well say, so what? Well, the problem is, as the developing world gets richer, more and more people want to live like us. As demand for finite resources like food and energy increases, prices will rise and shortages will occur. Worse still, pollution from all those fossil fuels will slowly begin to poison the planet. I know it sounds like we're all doomed and there's nothing we can do about it here in the Vale, but actually, that's not quite true. There are lots of things we can do to bring about change and reduce our impact on the planet. Some things are happening already, and in the process, they're helping local industry and creating local jobs. Best of all, the whole community can get involved in some way or another. And when others see what can be done here, maybe they'll change too. And that's what this film is all about, empowering our community to create a different, a better, a more sustainable future.
Food miles, a major cause of pollution, and those miles are a feature of most traffic queues as our food is trucked in from around Britain and the world. It's all part of the supermarket experience with their bulk buying power and efficient logistics. So no chance for the small local producer to compete, is there? It's the annual asparagus auction at the historic Fleece Inn, an excuse to dress up and celebrate the Vale speciality while auctioning some for charity.
There's a 5 on 30, 35 is your bid. £35 anywhere. Is it going? I've got £35, thank you.
The event is a celebration of localism, grown locally to eat locally. Very little transport is needed.
Thank you, sir.
And the Vale is full of such opportunities. Most obvious, of course, is to grow your own on an allotment or in your garden, which apart from providing fresh food offers some healthy exercise. But for some people, just growing things isn't enough.
Okay.
These villagers in Pebworth are awaiting their latest delivery. That's right, it's pigs. Because residents here have their own pig farm, a real community effort.
We formed a pig club because A, we like eating good naturally produced food, and also, for me personally, didn't know very much about, rearing farm animals, so thought it was an interesting project to get involved with.
The costs are shared, and everyone takes their turn at looking after the pigs.
Well, it's just great fun. Rearing your own food and eating it afterwards is just a lot of fun.
But no one loses sight of why they're feeding the pigs in the first place, not even the children.
We don't really get attached to our pigs too much because we know they're going to be food in the end.
So local food produced by local people, and the rewards are well worth the effort.
We got half a pig at a time, and getting a half a pig all at once is, you have to take that into consideration.
You need a big freezer.
It fills the freezer, but it's lovely. It's lovely just to go and take out, sausages that you know what they're going to taste like.
Picking plums. Along with apples, pears and soft fruit, they grow in abundance in the Vale. So much so that there is a problem, and for one woman, a business opportunity.
I moved into a house that was an ex-market gardener's property. So when we moved in, the garden was just abundant with fruit, and absolutely, the trees were hanging with the fruit. And I noticed in the area lots of other people had fruit in their gardens, and sometimes they would just leave the fruit to drop and you'll see it rotting on the floor, and it used to destroy me to see that happening.
Eager to find a solution to the problem, Lisa devised a business called Jelly Pickle Jam, where she and her team pick unwanted or surplus fruit. When she gets back home, Lisa gets to work peeling, chopping and cooking. The result is a wide range of home-cooked preserves and pickles. Finally, the finished product ends up at Lisa's shop and cafe in Evesham, where it goes on sale to the local community. But what about the owners of the fruit? What do they get out of it?
You can either go for 50-50 split on the fruit that's harvested. You can go for end product of jam or chutney made by your own fruit, and you can have it labelled up with your name on it if you want, so ideal Christmas presents. Or you can go for a more altruistic view of donating it to charity.
So by sharing the proceeds, everyone benefits. But there's still a long way to go.
People were constantly running out of food and resources, and we've got it here at our fingertips, so let's all get involved and save that, really.
Lisa's business is all about working with the community to prevent valuable crops going to waste. But what of those who grow food for a living? What could be better on a hot summer's day but a nice ice cream? And this ice cream is special. It's come straight from a local farm. Bretforton House Farm is an organic dairy farm which has been farmed by the Appleby family for 3 generations. Like many others, they found themselves faced with declining profits at the same time as the next generation of the family wanted to join the business.
We needed to add something else to the mix, so to speak. And Tom, our eldest son, when he'd been in Australia on his gap year, had seen lots of farmers, dairy farmers in Australia making ice cream and thought, why can't we have a go at that?
And so Spot Loggins ice cream was born. The milk used comes, of course, from their own dairy herd. But what about the other ingredients?
We're very fortunate to live in an area of the country which is in the position to grow a full range of crops. So in our fruit flavours in particular, we try to use, as far as possible, local ingredients, particularly the strawberries, raspberries, blackberries.
Spot Loggins ice cream is now popular across the Vale, with a wide range of flavours including asparagus. Yes, that's right, asparagus. But this success story depended on more than just great products.
What is very important to the people that set up local businesses is getting the support from local people. We've been particularly fortunate, and we get lots of nice comments, and which is both flattering and encouraging.
Which only leaves one question. What does the name Spot Loggins mean? Well, actually, it's the name of the farm's very own ghost. Spooky, eh? First pressing olive oil is loved by foodies everywhere, but to get it involves lots of food miles. But there's an alternative here in the Vale, which grows in abundance, providing one local farmer with a new business opportunity.
So what we've got here is rapeseed that is almost ready to harvest. What we get here is a bit like an apple tree. You get the flower, then you get the fruit. And if you get a handful of these brittle pods, and smash them up, what you can see is the little black seeds that have got the oil locked up inside them.
Once harvested, the seeds end up at the farm's pressing plant.
This machine is all cold pressing. What we're doing is we're extracting the seed using an Archimedes screw, pressing against a plate, which is back pressuring the oil out, which we're extracting here, and then causing the waste into a pellet, which is sent to a local farmer for cattle feed. It's a great animal feed, and it all goes back into the food chain, which is important for us because we're aiming to be less than 3% zero waste, which we've achieved at this moment. Rapeseed oil is a British product. Over olive oil, it's got half the saturated fat of olive oil, 0.1% cholesterol. It's high in the omegas and very high in vitamin E. But the key to this product is it's British and you can cook with it to a high temperature. You can use it for everything from salad dressings, homemade mayonnaise, but stir frying, wok cooking, shallow frying, roasting, and that's because it remains stable up to 240 Celsius. We've actually even been endorsed by a local cooking school for better roast potatoes and goose fat.
So local produce for local people. All we have to do is seek it out in restaurants like the Word of Mouth Cafe in Evesham, where they are passionate about buying locally.
We care about our produce, we care about our suppliers, and we care about our customers, and we hope through the food they'll understand and realise that. They can trust that if I say something is free range, it's free range. They can trust if I say that it's been bought locally. If it's been grown locally, then that is right.
And of course you can buy local produce at shops like Fruit Salad in Pershore High Street, Chadbury Farm Shop, or the Ellendon Farm Shop in Harvington, where there's something rather special about the meat.
Our meat is traceable. It comes from our farm at Coton, which is 9 miles away from here in Evesham. It then travels to Longcompton Abattoir, which we chose because it's a very small abattoir. It's not really commercial, so there's minimal stress on the animals, which also then leads to good quality meat, tender meat, because the animals haven't been stressed prior to slaughter. And then the meat goes from Longcompton back to our shop here. So in terms of food miles, it's absolutely minimal, and that also leads then to us being very competitive with price. I regularly look on sort of well-known supermarket websites to check our price, and currently a well-known supermarket in the area is charging £11 a kilo for Silverside, and ours is £9.99.
So buying local can save money as well as the environment. We use energy in every part of our lives, yet it mostly comes from far away and is from unsustainable sources. But it needn't be like that. Here's the Pettit family, using up their own renewable energy, while the sun is supplying renewable electricity to the roof of their house, and it's changed the way they use electricity.
We used to just put everything on in the evening. So nowadays we change it, so the laundry goes on during the day, the dishwashers go on during the day. In fact, we even nowadays cook at lunchtime. The strange thing is when we installed it, we were just looking at it from a financial, but since you installed it, you do change the way and start to think a bit more, I would say greener, but now it's installed, we're a lot more conscious about the energy we use.
Farmer Chris Holmes is checking his electric meter, not to see how much it's costing, but to see how much he's producing, because he's using wind power to produce electricity. Not from the sort of wind farm that so often causes controversy, just one single windmill.
We've 3 houses here, and we farm buildings and whatever, and we use most of the electricity that it produces on most days. A day like today, when it's very windy, we find that we've surplus, and at nights it would produce a lot of electricity that we would just export back into the grid.
The wind turbine is now a great success, but not all his neighbours were in favour of it being built.
Quite a lot of people objected, but I think they objected simply because they can't imagine how it's going to look. But after seeing it and realising that it's not an eyesore, some of them have apologised, and I suppose if they had the opportunity they would probably build one themselves.
Of course, there is one major problem with both sun and wind power. They're weather dependent. You simply can't rely on them. But there is another renewable source that's always on: water power. The Avon was used for centuries to power mills up and down the river, like this one at Cropthorne, providing flour to the people of the Vale. But they're all closed bar one. Fladbury Mill is just across the river from Cropthorne, and it's still working. Not grinding flour, but producing electricity, and it's been doing so since 1888. Originally, the power came from the water wheel, but that soon changed to a much more efficient turbine. At one time, they even supplied power to the village of Fladbury. Since the 80s, the mill has been owned by David Wynne.
The system relies on the flowing of the river, and this, of course, is great because that all year, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, except when there's floods or breakdowns. Those happen.
Until recently, Fladbury Mill was the only hydropower station on the river. But now another brand new one has opened up on the site of an abandoned mill at Evesham Weir.
We've been running for a year now. It's been working very well. We're very pleased with it. It's delivering what it was supposed to deliver, which is very nice.
When David began his project 10 years ago, the mill was a complete wreck, so he had to start virtually from scratch to create the state-of-the-art 60 kilowatt power station we have today. And Evesham may soon be joined by 2 other projects at Pershore and Nafford, which between them could produce several hundred kilowatts, enough for up to 60 homes. But there's another renewable source which offers a lot more potential. Cattle produce cow muck, which usually ends up in a slurry pit, but there is an alternative. In this disused quarry on the edge of the Cotswolds is a power station with a difference, because it consists of anaerobic digesters, large airtight tanks filled with organic waste, including cattle slurry. The process uses bacteria to convert the waste into methane, plus a residue of solid and liquid fertilisers. The methane gas is used to power an engine which generates electricity and heat.
The plant was set up in the back end of 2010, and we've grown steadily since that time from 1 megawatt now to currently 2 megawatts. The electricity generated here on site is exported to the national grid and then out to homes locally in Moreton and the surrounding environs. The anaerobic digestion process is both arable material going in, such as cow manure, silage, and also vegetable matter, as well as food waste. And the food waste that we take into the plant here is food waste that's been diverted from landfill. So again, very sustainably taking a product in, generating electricity, and also generating a green fertiliser that we can use across the estate.
Organic waste is all around us, and anaerobic digesters offer huge potential for power generation. In addition, it is carbon neutral and produces waste heat which can be used to heat homes and industry. But energy generation is only one half of the equation. Energy conservation is at least as important. This house looks quite conventional, but it is very unusual. It requires virtually no heating, has no main sewerage, and collects all the water it needs from its roof, and its solar panels produce more electricity than it uses.
The house is extremely efficient and extremely low energy, so our electricity bill is working out at about £300 a year. But because we also have a photovoltaic array which generates electricity and we get paid for the power that we export from that, that last year brought us in £875. So in the last year, effectively, living in this house has made us £575.
Also saving money are these giant plastic orange juice containers used to store the rainwater, which is then filtered through sand to provide the house's water supply. But not for flushing the toilets. They are dry, but surprisingly don't smell.
This is the chamber for the composting toilet system. All of our waste falls down the 2 chutes at the back there, lands on a sloping floor and slowly moves down to the front. Every 2 months or so we take out the waste. The solid matter comes out of this trapdoor here and the liquid comes out of the little tap down there. What comes out of here is a very well rotted, clean garden compost. It's not horrible, it doesn't smell, and it's a very good high quality compost.
So the house is self-sufficient, but why does it not need heating?
The whole of the internal structure of the house is extremely dense. For example, this is a 1 foot thick, poured in situ solid concrete floor weighing more than 50 tonnes. And the whole of this structure is surrounded by a huge amount of insulation. So the internal structure of the house slowly warms up during the summer, and then during the winter it gives that heat back.
Unfortunately, in the world of new houses, Mike's really stands out. New builds are barely more energy efficient than they were 20 years ago. Builders say upping the standard would cost too much, and there is in any case little government encouragement for them to change their ways.
It's partly down to the way that we look at housing in this country, the fact that a lot of UK housing is built by major property developers whose main motivation is profit. So they try to build houses that will have a broad appeal to lots of people that they can sell at a reasonable price but that will maximise their profits. In Germany they take a different approach. They're much more in tune with environmental matters, and it partly comes from the fact that when the Germans look at buying a house, they don't say, what's the cost of this house? You know, what do I have to pay for it? They say, what is this house going to cost me to live in for the next 20 years? And then you're looking at 2 very, very different figures. And that's a way of ensuring that you actually you build to a higher standard because the energy consumption then becomes very, very, very important. And if we live in this house for 20 years, which is a possibility, we're likely to save in the region of £100,000 plus compared to living in a conventional house with an ordinary amount of insulation and a standard heating system.
But all is not lost. These 10 houses in North Littleton are an example of how things should be done. They have triple glazing and are so well insulated that they will be cool in summer and warm in winter without the need for lots of additional heating. When complete, the roofs will have solar panels and they will have a drainage system designed to reduce the risk of flooding. Even the Germans would approve.
I don't think the true understanding of the value that this brings to a house is understood yet by the large house builders. I think sometime soon people will see that the reduced carbon footprint and the reduced energy footprint of a house is prudent to everyone, and they will start to understand that they don't cost that much more to build, which I think will show a complete revolution in the way we build houses today.
The fact that they cost little more than a conventional house is significant, but so is another aspect of the project.
All materials and the workforce is sourced as local as possible to the project. At the moment we have 4 contractors from within the 10-mile radius and several more from within a 20-mile radius. All our materials are bought from as close as to the project as possible. However, it isn't always physically possible to locate specialist materials that close, but when we procure all our materials, they come with full chain of custody certificates so we can see that they have come from a sustainable source.
And here are the completed houses, which just goes to show that we can build attractive, sustainable homes at a sustainable price. Cars are a major cause of pollution, yet we all rely on them far too much. The obvious alternative is the bus, but services are facing cuts due to rising costs and falling subsidies. Some of this could be avoided if we simply used the services more, but the way things are going, it may already be too late for that on many routes. One possible alternative is the bicycle, which with recent sporting success is enjoying a boom. But for people new to cycling, the prospect of going out on busy roads can be quite daunting. And that's where H-Bug in Honeybourne comes in, training and building confidence for cyclists of all ages.
I thought, well, I need to take new cyclists off-road into environments which are completely safe. And there's 2 ways of doing that. One is on the sports field here in Honeybourne, where they're completely safe. And then we have a lane, a quiet lane, at the other end of the village, where I could lead family rides in a controlled way. And that is onto more complicated roads with the left-hand and right-hand turns, with traffic, with bends. So we can bring any rider, whatever age, through in a controlled, graduated way to a level of confidence.
And for one man at least, it seems to be working.
I cycled to the doctors and that was 13.5 miles there and back, and I was fine, and I say the doctor was very impressed. She thought I'd put her to shame, and she's about half my age.
Building on this success, Steve wants to do more for cycling by creating dedicated routes for cyclists to use.
I'm now working with the town plan group, and within that my responsibility is to try and link the villages into Evesham town, and I'm working on routes from those villages into town, and then hopefully we put a grand plan together which can then attract finance and support from other areas to enable us to become a more cycling orientated community.
If this succeeds, maybe the Vale can become a model for a more healthy and sustainable transport network. And finally, here's a story about a man from Fladbury who designed a boat dedicated to saving the planet. They are aimed at children and are a great success.
We became involved in how to get a message about climate change to the world, and because of our boating knowledge, I decided to build a new boat, a boat for all, Because with climate change, we've got to get everybody on board so everybody could take part.
But taking part is about more than the boats. Every child involved in the project also makes their own paddle, painted with an environmental message.
We had the idea that if all the children made a paddle for life out of wood and then painted their design on it, got their parents to sign the back of the paddle, so it involved everybody, so everybody in it, and then they planted trees on a 2-to-1 basis to replace the wood. Then everybody would have taken the first step in sinking carbon.
David's initiative has been a great success and has spread all over the county. But he wanted to get the Paddle for Life message to the widest possible audience.
This is the Worcestershire paddle, and so the first person I went to was the local MP at that time, who was Michael Spicer, who's now Lord Spicer. And then David Cameron has signed this paddle, and Boris Johnson, most of the Worcestershire leaders, teachers in the schools, and back of the paddle, the children of the school and the various members of the community here had already signed the paddle before we got the leaders to do it.
David has had success in getting politicians here to commit to the Paddle for Life. Now he is determined to get leaders around the world to follow suit.
Here's the Worcestershire model. Now you can do the same wherever you are, whether you're in London, whether you're in America, and whether you're in China. China is the key to it. China is the greatest emitter in the world. If we can get the leaders of China to sign the Paddle for Life, and it goes through the system in China, then it affects 1.2 billion, and with that we bring the world on board to solve the climate change problem.
So here in the Vale, there are things we can do to work for a more sustainable future. But this film has barely scratched the surface. To get involved or learn more, visit Imagine in Marketplace, Evesham, or the website of Transition Evesham Vale at transitioneveshamvale.org.uk, who gave invaluable help in the making of this film.